Making money on tariff shortages. Hey everyone, it's Wolfgang. I wanted to cover this subject because a lot of people have been thinking about this. There's probably a way to thrive in the upcoming shortages caused by the tariffs. And so I wanted to give some ideas on what you might think about. This is just a few options. There's a lot of possibility, but this will generate some ideas, hopefully. So shortages are beginning right now. Most of us have heard that there's been a 60% or higher drop in imports to the U.S. Port activity in the U.S. has declined substantially, and so the shortages are beginning right now. With the loss of those imports not coming to our shores, we will soon see a shortage of things that we've been taking for granted for a long time. As Walmart and Target have said, empty shelves. So that is developing right now. So we're on the ground floor of the opportunities I'm going to present here. Okay. So right now, here's the tariff situation. There are 10% baseline tariffs on all countries who want to sell to the U.S. in the U.S. market. 10% on everyone. Then there are reciprocal tariffs up to 50% on countries who are burning the U.S. with high tariffs like that now, who are already charging U.S. products in their country, being sold in their country, tariffs up to 50%. So we are reciprocating and saying, if you're going to charge a 50% tariff for us to sell U.S. products in your market, we are going to reciprocate and charge 50% if you want to sell your products in the U.S. market. And then there's an additional 25% tariff on Canada and Mexico because of all the border problems. They have been willing cooperators in flooding the U.S. with, the whole border issue. So 10%, 50%, 25%, and then the highest tariffs are on China, 145% and greater. This is where the opportunity is. Now, if you stop and think for a minute, if you look at these numbers, focus on these numbers, and then look at this number, the 145%, you should see that there's an opportunity right here before I go much further. But I will elaborate. I'm going to explain everything. So if you don't get it right away, I will explain it. So let's talk about a few different ways to thrive in the upcoming shortages. Again, just a few ideas. This is not a complete list, just to stimulate some thinking about it. So one idea, freight forwarding service. Create a freight forwarding service from low tariff suppliers, countries that have low tariffs, relatively speaking. So China has high tariffs, so that's not one of the countries we would freight forward from. But if we could find a country that has a 10% tariff, say, on products that we used to get from China, then that would be a possible freight forwarding opportunity for us. We could go to those countries and say, look, we can no longer get this product that used to come from China. You guys have something similar or some substitute. We will help you forward into our country and then charge a fee for that to those countries. Okay, so another idea, storage spaces for businesses who are front loading, who are hoarding inventory. We're in the early stages of shortages, or at the ground floor of this opportunity. So a lot of companies, as we probably, you probably heard that a lot of companies have been stocking up, sort of pulling forward inventory ordering to stock up on stuff before the tariffs really bite. So a lot of smaller companies do not have the space. Their eyes are bigger than their stomach. They would like to import much more than they have room for. So offering storage space for companies to front load inventory, including, at some point when the full tariffs kick in, countries with lower tariffs than China, they're going to get a lot of sales because their tariffs are so much lower. And so front loading will come from those low tariff countries. Okay. So another idea, we're trying to figure out ways to make money on the tariffs, the shortages. Price arbitrage. Now, an arbitrage is just a word for something that in one place sells for a certain price and in another place sells for a different price. So if you stock up now on high demand items, if you just, go, make a list of things that people normally buy from these countries where they're going to have high tariffs, the high demand items, stock up on those items and wait for prices to rise. Because when shortages occur, the old supply and demand, when the supply drops and the demand stays the same or increases, the price rises. If there's an overabundance, the reverse situation is an oversupply of something, then if the demand stays the same or falls, the price will drop. So just to drive that point home, just imagine if Ferrari flooded the world with 1 million cars, the prices for Ferraris would drop because the supply would be too high. That's one of the main strategies of Ferrari, is to never produce enough cars to meet demand for their cars, to not produce enough to keep prices high. So price arbitrage, stock up now on high demand items and wait for prices to rise. Now, is that ethical? Well, it depends on how much prices rise and how much you end up charging. Because think about it. If you stock up now on high demand items, you have two costs right away: the price of the items and your storage cost, right? So it's 100% ethical to charge a higher price later when prices rise and to make a profit on it. Now, if you gouge, you can get into trouble for that, because that's illegal in some regions of the US. It's illegal to gouge people. Okay, another idea: secondhand goods. If you identify some high demand items like electronics and so on that pretty soon we're not going to be able to get from China anymore, if you buy secondhand items that are high demand and wait for the shortages to manifest, new products will be so expensive when the shortages really hit. The price of new products will rise quite a bit. So they'll get so expensive, new products will be so expensive, more people will be willing to buy secondhand items. And you can, you've probably already heard of this already, because the used cars market, right? When the prices of vehicles got so out of line, more and more people decided they were going to buy used cars. So the used cars that were available for sale, they started rising in price. So you could stock up on secondhand items now, wait for the shortages to manifest, and then you've got substitute goods that people will be willing to buy, and you can make a profit on those. And then probably the key thing is to make a list of high demand items and find a source for substitute products. Find sources for substitutes, because there are some countries where the tariffs are going to be 0 or very low. Okay, so for example, let's see here, Israel, Argentina, and Taiwan, they're in negotiations right now with the U.S. to have a 0 for 0 tariff situation. Israel, Argentina, and Taiwan will charge 0 tariffs on incoming U.S. products, and we will do the same for their products in our market. So if you can source substitute products from these markets, as prices rise due to shortages, you can purchase there and bring to the U.S. and sell and make a profit. So, okay, there was a couple of other things. Okay, so the types of products to consider, because I couldn't fit everything on the board. Electronics, especially electronics, okay? Because 145% tariffs on China, how many of our electronics products come from China? A sizable percentage come from China, electronics products. Okay, so to give you an example, about a week ago, I was driving home and I noticed in a strip mall a store that had a sign they were buying electronics. And I thought, that sounds kind of odd. Why would they buy electronics? And I actually got so curious, I pulled into the strip mall, I stopped, and I went into the store to talk to the gal behind the counter, because I thought to myself, is this a pawn shop or something that's set up to buy people's used electronics goods? And I thought to myself, that doesn't make any sense, because electronics products are pretty cheap as it is. I mean, think about the cost of a flat screen TV now compared to 10 years ago. The prices just plummeted. They're really cheap. And it struck me later, I know what they're doing. That strip mall store is owned by somebody who is doing this. They're buying secondhand electronics from China when the tariffs hit, because China is being very uncooperative. It's pretty likely that China will not change. They have they have their own position that's stupid, in my opinion, but I don't think they're going to cooperate. So this strip mall store is buying people's electronics. While I was in that store, there was someone in there selling used electronic equipment. And I thought, why would a store, because the cost of renting the store space, the signs they had to put up, the marketing they did, paying the staff in the store to meet people who come into, and how, for all they know, they're buying a stolen property too. So it didn't make sense, the economics of it, until I realized if you're buying secondhand goods that are in high demand right now, when the shortages hit, they could make a sizable profit, because people, we learned with the used car market, people will start paying big bucks for used stuff they would never have considered paying, prices they never would have considered paying previously because of the shortages. Okay, so other products to consider that are going bye-bye because of China, mainly rare earth minerals. If you can get your hands on stockpiles of rare earth minerals, China has already slammed the door on that. They're no longer importing rare earth minerals to the U.S. That's already happened. So the shortages are beginning right now. So if you can get your hands on supplies of rare earth minerals that we previously sourced from China, I would buy as much as you can and hold and wait for prices to go up. And then U.S. made, this is sort of a unusual perspective on this problem, because a lot of people think we're not going to be able to buy products from China, electronics, computers, on and on, solar panels. So what do we do? A little known thing is, because it's not highly publicized, over half of the population of our country here in the U.S. would prefer buying U.S.-made substitute products, and they would pay more if they were available. Because if you think about it, when is the last time you saw a flat screen TV or an electronics product made in the USA, right? If they were available, though, if they become available, 60% of U.S. citizens are willing to pay more for U.S.-made products. So if you can find substitute products that are U.S.-made, especially right now, because there's sort of a fever in this country that it's time that we get our jobs back. Because this whole tariff thing, a big part of it anyways, is because our job market has been hollowed out by slave labor and very cheap labor in China. If you watch my video from yesterday, I pointed out that the highest minimum wage in China is about $380 a month. So, and then they have 6 million people who are slaves that they're working for nothing. So our jobs base here, our factories have been hollowed out, is the phrase they use. So the tariff situation is designed to correct that, to bring jobs back. And once that happens, if U.S.-made substitute products become available, 60% of our population is willing to pay more for U.S. products. People are anxious to improve the health of our own country, right? Because where you live is important. You have to take care of it. So another idea, 3D printing of goods that are in short supply. Not all products will work with that, but if you have a 3D printer, or you can get access to one, and you can identify products that can be made with 3D printing, then you can, that would be an example of a substitute product. Okay, drop shipping. If you can find offshore manufacturers like in other countries with much lower tariffs, like 10%, drop shipping, where you would have your website selling products, you would not hold any inventory. The manufacturer would take care of the shipping. So drop shipping is an idea. And then batteries. China was a big source of batteries. Okay, that's going away. 145% tariffs. No one's going to be paying that much for batteries. And if you can find a country, and there's a couple of countries, Japan and Korea, that are good with battery technology, they will probably be on the lowest tariff tier, 10%. So batteries will be much more affordable from those countries. So there's one thing to keep in mind about this whole opportunity. I mean, we're trying to make money on the tariff shortages. There's one very important thing to always remember about this opportunity, is that there are tariffs, the 10%, and then there are China tariffs, 145%. This is basically a blockade on China products coming to the U.S. There will be a huge reduction in China products. I don't think China will negotiate. Supposedly, they are trying to create new business in other countries. Good luck with that, because the U.S. is the largest market on the planet. But the China tariffs are so large that when shortages occur, people will say, okay, the price is 10% higher, I can deal with that, but I'm not buying 145% higher. So countries with much lower tariffs will be the arbitrage. If you can source products from low or no tariff countries, I mean, there are some countries, Israel, Argentina, Taiwan, and there might be others who will have no tariffs, then you can source from those countries and make a profit here, because a lot of products that we've been buying from China are no longer going to be available. And if you can, and the companies right now that stocked up on inventory, do you think they're going to raise prices on that inventory as the shortages increase? Yes, they will. You betcha they will. Because they had to buy the products, and they've been paying to store them, and they have a right to make a profit too. So if you have any questions about this, I'd be happy to answer any questions if you post in the comments. Best wishes with this, because it's not all doom and gloom. When some countries are going to have zero tariffs or only 10%, there's a lot of opportunity to get product from them and substitute products and bring them into the U.S. one way or the other and make sales here, because China is being cut out of the picture. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I really want to thank everyone for watching. Have a great day.